Hola clase, soy tu maestra señorita Guess y hoy vamos a hablar de pronombres de sujetos. En inglés son los subject pronouns. Subject pronouns are what we use to know who is doing a particular action. So if I just said threw the ball, you would assume a word got left off because you don't know who threw the ball. You would say, you threw it, he threw it, they threw it. What's going on? We have to use a word in English to tell us who did what action because most of our verbs are the same for every single person who does an action. So subject pronouns are super important for that reason. In Spanish, you'll find out there's another way to tell who is doing what, but you're still going to make good use of this chart. So I want you to get really good and comfortable with this chart. I want you to be best friends with this chart. You're going to see this chart a lot. So welcome and get used to it. This chart is divided into really 6 boxes. I know you're going to say that table has way more than 6 boxes. Okay. This table has more than 6 boxes for labeling purposes only. And if you'll actually notice, yours does not have some of these extra boxes here. I'm going to be putting in the English in those boxes. But for the sake of argument, there are 6 main boxes. It is 2 columns. The columns are always divided into singular, singular, and plural, plural. Plural is, of course, more than one if you forgot your second grade English grammar. We also have 3 rows. Our 3 rows are primera persona, first person, segunda persona, second person, and tercera persona, third person. Primera persona, if you remember when your English teacher will talk about a story being written in first person narrative or first person voice, that means that the person telling the story is also doing all the action in the story. When you're speaking in primera persona, the speaker is part of the action. They're the one doing the action. It's either just them, which in English would be the pronoun I, or it's them with somebody else, which would be we. Segunda persona does not get talked about very much. It is when you're talking to someone. Specifically, a lot of times we think of like you're telling someone to do something. So if I say, you did that, like I'm asking a question, you did that, that's second persona. Also, if I am talking to somebody, I tell them to do something, shut the door. That would be segunda persona. Tercera persona is when you're talking about someone. And most stories are, of course, written in third person, limited, or omniscient, meaning we're talking about people doing things. These are your he, your she, and your they. So let's get started in Espanol, shall we? Primera persona, singular, would be yo. Yo fui al mercado. In English, I went to the market. Plural would mean that I went with somebody else. And if I say Bob and I went to the store, I can just as easily say we went to the store. In Espanol es nosotros. Repite, nosotros, nosotros. It looks really long and scary. It's actually not that hard. Okay? This is we. Now, I do want you to make a little mental note here. Just like I said, if I said Bob and I went to the store, Bobby yo, that belongs in that same spot with your nosotros. That'll be more important when we get into verbs, but I just want you to have a note of it now. All right. Singular. Segunda persona. If you want to say you want to go to the game, you did this, you're going to use usually to. It is TU and there is an accent. If you look on the beginning information of this site, there is a file that tells you all the codes you can use to be able to make accents. The only problem is apparently while I'm recording, those codes don't work. So I'm going to be using the pen for my accents, but you don't need to. 2 is you singular, and it's specifically used with people you are familiar with. So I will always call it the you familiar. All right. It is for people that you are friends with, people that are family, good family, really close family. You use it with pets, use it with small children. You use it with people who you feel that are on the same playing field with you and that you don't feel a particular need to show a higher level of respect for. So that is our 2. Then there is vosotros, and vosotros is kind of special. It is you plural, first of all. In English, we just use a singular you, and we use it for everything. We don't make a differentiation between you want to go to the game talking to one person and you want to go to the game talking to multiple people. We just use you. Sometimes we will say you guys or y'all or you all. That's becoming more popular again. But for right now, we just have this you. In Spanish, that's different. There is a plural version of that you. There's a plural version to indicate I'm talking to more than one person. But the other thing that's super important with vosotros is it is only actually used in Spain. It is only used in Spain at the moment. And therefore you won't actually be seeing it on a lot of your tests. That was supposed to be a squiggle to make that an enye, and it failed at life, but you're going to understand that because I'm telling you that it failed at life. So in Spain and España, they use vosotros for you plural, but in Latin America, we're going to use a different one that we'll get to in just a minute. In the third person singular, tercera persona singular, we have el, which does have an accent on that E. I'm noting these accents with you because they are actually kind of important. If you don't have these accents, it's a different word. Small words, accents tend to be important. I will tell you on bigger words, should you use your accents? Of course. If you forget, does it really inhibit someone understanding you? Not normally. But on small words, often if there's an accent, it's because there are 2 words, one with an accent and one without. El is an example of this. We have el, which in English means he. And if we have he, we of course need the counterpart and more important. Oh, wait, not more important. Sorry, gentlemen. The counterpart, ella, which is she. Not Ella, ella. Get it straight. That double L is either a Y or a J sound. It's either ella or Asia, but it's never Ella. We have one other guy that has to go in this box that's kind of important. We need to put usted over here. Usted is our you for more formal situations. This would be your boss, older people, people you don't know well and you're not on a first name basis with. But wait a minute, if you're talking to them, shouldn't that still be second person? Yes, it is second person if we're going to get into a literary conversation, but in terms of how you're going to actually use this chart, it needs to go in the third person box. Think of it as you're elevating them up to the next status because you're trying to show them respect. You're trying to put them a little above you. And that is why they're getting bumped up to third person. Make a note here also. I understand this is not a pronoun, but if you need to use somebody's name, nombre, to explain that they did something, you are going to put that in this box as well. So, and if you think about this makes sense. I can say Joe threw the ball, Joe tiró la pelota, or I can say he threw the ball, él tiró la pelota. It has more to do with whether or not you know who he is, right? They both belong in this box. And just like we have singular for third person, we also have plural. We have ellos. Ellos is they. It is used for either a group of all men, masculine, or it can be used for a mixed group, men and women. There is another they, ellas, not ecas, ellas, I can type. which is used specifically when you're talking about an all-female group. Now, I should note there is a nosotras and a vosotras that is actually supposed to be when it's an all-female group, but they're kind of falling out of favor. I don't see them used as much in modern writing, but the ellas is still around pretty strong. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point this streamlines and they're both gone, but for right now, I'm going to make sure you know ellas because I do see it used fairly frequently. And then there is ustedes. Ustedes is also you, but it's you plural. You guessed it. And this is the one you use everywhere except Spain. Okay, this is the Latin American you plural. Again, if you would have multiple people you are describing doing something, Bob and Joe, you are going to use this box. And again, I understand that these are not pronouns, but I want you to think they go here. Bob and Joe, Bob y Jose would be replaced with ellos. So now let's start practicing. I want you to do this section 1 through 8 using the second person or the you pronouns, some of which are in our second person boxes and some of which are in our third person boxes. So your choices are tú, vosotros, usted, and ustedes. For the moment, I want you to treat vosotros as being familiar and informal, kind of like tú. I want you to use it for the plural tú. And I want you to use ustedes for a plural when you feel you should be a little more formal. I would like you to pause the video at this moment, give it a try on your own, and then we'll go over the answers. Excelente. Repasamos. Bien. La maestra de español. Technically speaking, you should use usted when you're talking to la maestra de español, me. I'm going to tell you right now, most of my students don't. I am very comfortable with you using tú. That's totally cool. But if we want to talk about what would be right by societal standards, usted is technically better because you're trying to show me some respect. If you wrote me a formal email, it might not be a bad idea. Tu amigo. Your amigo is your friend. Of course, with your friend, you're going to be using something less formal. So you should be using tú. And again, on your copy, make sure you're putting the accents. I'm going to do my best to do so with these little pen devices that I'm getting used to. So, tú. Dos amigos. Now we need to go over to our plural side. And if we're going to stick with this pattern of sticking with the informal with tú, we should go over and use vosotros. Now, if you put ustedes and you're like, dude, I went to Mexico. They never used vosotros. I studied Spanish in high school. We never used vosotros. It's fine. I'm not going to be upset with you, and it won't be counted wrong on a test. But I want you to understand this chart. So for right now, I'm going to put vosotros there. El Señor Lopez. If I am calling him Mr. Lopez rather than George, some of you get that reference? How old am I? Okay. El Señor Lopez. I'm going to be using usted. If we're not close enough that I can use his first name, I should definitely be using usted. Los padres de tu amigo. Now, your amigo, of course, you used tú. But their parents, you probably are still saying Mr. and Mrs. last name. If you're really comfortable with them, you might use vosotros, but we're going to go ahead and put ustedes here because you're probably showing them a little more respect. If amigos too, not the one that you would think of as being formal, think of first time you're meeting boyfriend, girlfriend, significant others, parents. You are definitely using a little bit more formal language that first time to make sure that you make a good impression. Tus amigos, Jose y Paco, plural, informal, we're going to use vosotros. El Dr. Garcia, again, I'm probably not on a first name basis if I'm saying Dr. Garcia. So in that case, I want to stick to usted. Tu mama, this can be tricky for people, but usually your mama, you lived in her house, you lived in your mom's house, you probably are going to be using tú. Now, exceptions. Big exception would be if for some reason you and your mom don't know each other very well, you might feel you need to use usted. Probably more commonly, this would be the exception. You are broke and you need money, and you go to mom and you're like, puedo tener 50 dólares, por favor. Usted es la más bonita de todas las madres de todo el mundo. You're like trying to lay it on thick because you're asking mama for money. All right. Or you're asking mama for something. If you're asking mama for something, you may want to throw in the usted. But normally, because you're on a familiar basis, you're going to use to. Now, we're going to do the second section. And again, I'm going to ask you to pause in a second and try these on your own. These I want you to use mostly the third persons, the él, ella, ellos, and ellas. But I threw nosotros in here because I want you to get in that habit that if you see a name yo, that is the same as nosotros. It's a mistake a lot of people make if they don't make this habit now. So pause the video, give it a try, and then start up again and let's see where we're at. Bueno, ¿estamos listos para repasar? Bien. Andres. Andres is a boy's name. There's just one of him. So we are going to use él. And again, I'm going to have to get out the little pen, and I'm going to have to do the little chica because it doesn't let me do it otherwise. And that's a terrible chica, but you get the point. There's my accent. El señor y la señora Valdez. Well, first of all, I'm calling them Mr. and Mrs. Valdez. Second of all, there's more than one of them. So I am going to be using ellos. I have a Mr. and a Miss is, which means I have a mixed group. Ellos is appropriate. Tu y yo. The second you see somebody y yo, your brain should go nosotros, we. Elena is a girl's name. There's just one of her, so we should be using ella. Forgive me. The formatting drives me crazy, so I have to fix it. Roberto, Luis, y Alvaro. These are all boys' names. And as we just said, boys plural. There's more than one of them. We don't have yo in here anywhere, so we're going to be using ellos. Tu hermana. You might have had trouble with this. Hermana is your sister. Hermana's sister. And if you, this is a good time to note that if you see a on the end of a word, even if you don't know what that word means, if you know it's a person, it's probably female. And if you see o on the end of a word, it's often masculine. Okay. Notice the boys' names here, Roberto and Alvaro. And if you look at Elena, which is a girl's name, it ends in a. Okay. So tu hermana, your sister, what should you be using? You should be using ella, she. Mi hermana me robó mis maquillajes. My sister stole my makeup, which, you know, probably doesn't happen nowadays that we all have our own houses, but, you know, when we were younger, probably did. El abuelo es tu grandfather. And if it is your grandfather, it is obviously masculine and it's a singular person, so you're wanting to use el. And again, make sure you're accenting. Ooh, that one actually looks good. Maria y su mamá. Now I have Maria, which is a girl's name, and mamá, which is mom, which is also a woman. More than one, we're going to use a yes. Marcela y yo. As soon as you see that yo, your brain should go, nosotros it is. And then maestro, this would be a male teacher, and you should therefore be using él. And that is the end of our worksheet on subject pronouns. I'm going to suggest that you also watch the next video, which is on the verbo ser, so that you understand how to use these with a verb. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment or send me an email or a message here on Canvas. And otherwise, good luck with the rest of your studies. Have a great day. Bye. Adios.